Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Teach Kelvin Your Thing session. In today's session, we are going to be learning serverless from scratch from someone I admire a lot and who greatly influenced TKYT. You all might know him, and his name is Jason. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I am really humbled and happy to have you because, like I said, you influenced TKYT a lot with your Learn with Jason show. I really must appreciate you for everything you do for web dev. So, before we get started, can we have an introduction to who Jason Lengstorf is, what you've been doing, what you currently do, and why you are teaching us serverless for today?
Yeah. Okay. So I am. Let's see. I'm Jason Lengstorf. I host a show called Learn with Jason. I've been doing web dev for a long time. I've been doing it since the early 2000s. My first websites were table based. CSS didn't exist yet. So I have been just kind of playing on the web, having a good time. I got into web because of music. I was a musician and wasn't very good at being a musician, so couldn't afford to hire help. So I had to learn how to build websites and make tour posters and all that, and built up a skill set that allowed me to get into web dev full time when the band didn't work out. And I forget what the other part of the question was. So we're going to talk about serverless today. So serverless functions are a really powerful way to just quickly add business logic to websites, and it's something that I feel is such a superpower for developers,
Mhm.
especially because it really lowers the learning curve. And something that I find really important about getting into web dev in general is we tend to have big ideas. We want to
Mhm.
build things that have user accounts or databases or that use third-party services or otherwise are connected and dynamic.
Mhm.
And when you start doing that if you're trying to do a static site, you just run into the limits of what you can do on the client side because
Okay.
it's not secure to put API keys, things like that in the client side.
Mhm.
But then you start looking at servers and suddenly you're staring down, okay, I have to figure out how to build a server, how to host that somewhere, how much does that cost? What if I need a database? How much does that cost? And suddenly you're looking at a lot of complexity and cost to build something that you just wanted for fun or for learning.
Mhm.
Or if you're bootstrapping your business, like you want to build it and you don't want to necessarily put a ton of money into the infrastructure before
Mhm.
you've proven out that the business works.
Yeah.
And so what I love about serverless is that serverless is a much lower barrier to entry. If you can write some JavaScript on the client side, you can most likely write the same JavaScript in a serverless function and it will work. You don't have to pay for it. It's on the free tier up to millions of requests. I think it's
Mm.
a million or two on the free tier. It's quite a bit. You can talk to third-party services securely. You don't ever have to think about deployment or scaling. It auto scales for you, and all of that leads to somebody who's a front-end developer. You can just build the thing you want to build. You don't have to start reaching out into other areas of tech and becoming an ops or a backend or a database specialist to build out the idea. You can just kind of plug together these tools and get the thing out there and validate it and be sure that it's what you really want to ship, with no cost and very little time. And I think that's such a big power up for folks.
Yeah, I really like the idea because most times as a front end dev, you like have this idea and maybe you just want to test it out and you do not want to reach out for like a full backend setup. So from what you're telling me now with serverless, I could have that just a JavaScript function that runs on the server, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and there's some limitations to this, right? So
Okay.
it's compute that runs on demand. And so what that means is when you make a request,
Mm-hmm.
the serverless function will wake up, do a little bit of work, and then go back to sleep. And this is great because it really controls cost. It's a little more environmentally friendly for services that don't have a ton of usage because you're
Mm-hmm.
not just running a server 24 hours a day. Um, but the challenge is, like, if you're doing something like, say, a WebSocket or you need an always on service, like certain types of bots, then a
Okay.
serverless function probably doesn't work. This is great for things like webhooks, event driven things, user interactions, batch based stuff. If you want to run like a daily report
Okay.
using a cron job, you can do that.
Mm.
It's very, very good for things like that. It's the only limitation is going to be if you're trying to do something that needs to be long lived and on all the time, like say a GraphQL subscription or something like that.
Okay. Nice. Nice. That sounds really interesting. So, I get the idea, but I want us
Mhm.
to revisit the ethos of serverless again because is it strictly because of developers who need to quickly have like an on-demand function that they could refer to as their backend, or it does it come from something else than that?
I mean, I think the big thing for me is serverless exists to eliminate a class of undifferentiated labor.
Okay.
Like there's a whole bunch of work that goes into standing up a server, and for a lot of applications, the server itself doesn't matter. You know, you're standing up a node server with Express or a Rails server or a PHP server,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately how that functions, all the boilerplate that accepts the request and sends something back to the browser, and all the boilerplate that keeps that running and is listening on a port, and all those things that have to happen for a server to function, it
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't matter. Right, I'm trying to get some data from a request of some sort of form post, or somebody sends me a webhook, and I want to return something, most likely
Okay.
JSON or HTML.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to do that, I don't want to have to do all the bits that don't matter to my application. All that boilerplate, the deployment, all those things, that's what I would call undifferentiated later. It doesn't make a difference in your business.
Yeah.
And when you're building those sorts of things, you're spending a lot of time figuring out how to, like, what's the right way to build a server? What's the right way to deploy a server? And all of that is time that you're not spending on building the valuable part of your app, which is your idea.
Mm-hmm.
So what serverless is doing is it's eliminating this whole class of just stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And by the time it matters, you'll have hired specialists to do that thing, right? Like you'll be making money from your service. You'll be at the level that, you know, you can hire a database architect or a DevOps team and start looking at what the right ways to optimize that kind of stuff are. But out of the gate, for the first long while that you're running a company, unless you have a very specific need that you're building with your server, and that's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times going to be what your backend team is doing,
Yeah.
is building like the explicit business value of your company is going to be some microservice or API or whatever it is that delivers like the core functional logic.
Mm-hmm.
But for, you know, form handling, for doing the, you know, like I generate my open graph images, I handle like batching jobs, I manage my schedule. When somebody request something with me on Calendly, I like use a webhook to like send to a serverless function that like posts it into a Slack channel so that my
Mm-hmm.
EA knows that it's happening. Like there's so many things that you do that I don't need to build a server for that. I just need that little bit of logic to happen. That's the value.
Yeah.
And so serverless is a shortcut from idea to delivery that lets you cut out all of this sort of, again, undifferentiated labor that would just add a bunch of time and not much value.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. I love it. So I think we should just get right to it because I think I understand why I would need a serverless function, and in my mind, I'm already thinking of ways I could use it. For example, I have a desktop app called Guppy that lets you just run
Mhm.
JavaScript and you see the output and tons of other
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, so it needs you to get a license. So instead of having like a full blown server like I have right now with serverless, I could
Hmm.
just have like a function like send license. So you put in your email, I just
Hmm.
call that function. You buy, then I send you the license. That's great. I love it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, cool. So we let's get onto it. Let's write some serverless
Yeah, let's do
functions. Yeah.
it.
All right. So the boop we're here.
All right, so we've got my screen here. I'm going to pull up a terminal,
Okay.
and let's set up a new directory. So I'm going to make a directory. Make that a little bit bigger so we can see what's going on. I'm going to make a new directory called TKYT Serverless,
Okay.
and then we'll move into that. And I'm just going to initialize it as a new Git repository, but it's empty. All it has in it is a Git folder right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to npm install the Netlify CLI globally. And what this means is that I'm going to have access to use the Netlify CLI. There are lots of tools that will do serverless, but I work at Netlify, and I've also found that I just vastly prefer the workflow of this because
Okay.
it's so fast for me. So I'm going to
Okay.
install the CLI, and then the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to open this up in VS Code.
Okay.
And so we've got VS Code going here. And as you can see, it's still an empty folder. So I'm going to create a Netlify folder and then a folder called functions.
Mm-hmm.
And then inside of that, we're just going to create hello.ts. And so the .ts, you can use TypeScript or not. It's not really required.
Okay.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to export a const called handler. And that is going to be an async function. And this is going to return a status code of 200, body of, we'll say hello.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the bare minimum serverless function. So I'm going to start by running this, and then we'll talk about what it does.
Okay.
So over here, I've got my function running, and so I'm going to go to Netlify functions hello, and you can see that it's returned the hello.
Mm-hmm.
I will knock this to this side and this to this side, and let's change this real quick, and we'll say hello, Kelvin.
Mm-hmm.
Save it, reload, and so we're now like building serverless functions locally. No setup. We didn't have to worry about the servers, anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just running. Okay. And so I find this to be really, really exciting. And then if we want to actually use this, I can come out here and create an index.html. And let's just make this a little bigger here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can say like, serverless from scratch. Do TKYT.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I can do like an H1 if I can type properly.
Yeah.
And
That's
we'll just
nice.
copy paste this bit here.
Mm-hmm.
And let's do this. I'm gonna just set up a little pre-tag, and then here I'm gonna get a button, and this button is going to just say like load data, and then down here I'm just gonna set up a script. And in this script, I'm going to say the button, and that's going to be document.get. We'll do a query selector. Let's grab our button. I'm going to give it a name just in case we ever want to change this.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say load data, and here get load data.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then what I want to do is add event listener, and we're going to listen for a click. We'll get the event itself, and I'm going to event prevent default, and then we're going to it's async actually.
Okay. Oh,
And the
yeah.
reason I want to make it async is I'm going to actually request our serverless function.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to use it in the app. And so I'm going to get our data is, or actually we're going to do a response, and the response is going to be an await of fetch. We're going to use the built-in fetch API.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to Netlify functions hello, and when that comes back, we can check if there's a problem. Then we can console error the response, and we'll just see what went wrong
Okay.
and return there to just kind of short circuit everything.
Mm.
Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll get the actual data, which will be an await of res JSON. Actually, this one is only text, isn't it? So we'll get text,
Yeah.
and then we will do a document query selector And we're going to call this one output. So we'll give this a class name of output.
Mm-hmm.
And inside our query selector, we'll grab it. Right. And then I'm going to set let's set text. We'll set text content to be our data. Okay.
Oh.
So what I want to happen here is when I click this button on the home page, I
Mm-hmm.
want that to put the output of this function into this pre tag.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to the home page, and now we can see it. And when I click the button, right, we're now
Wow.
doing servers, right?
Yeah.
So in this little bit of code, we're able to very quickly start interacting with something on our site, right?
Yes.
And this is why this is so powerful to me, is because it so quickly allows us to start doing some really, really powerful stuff that would take so long if I had to go deploy a node server, set up Express, figure out how to set up the routes, and then then I would be writing this little bit of logic that I wrote here after I'd set up the routes. So let's talk about specifically what this is to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that I'm not just glossing over details, because I went pretty fast here.
Yeah, you did.
So so the first and foremost thing is Netlify by default
Mm-hmm.
recognizes a Netlify folder as being like special. It'll
Yeah.
look inside of it for things including functions.
Okay.
And so anything that you put in as a function will be served at this .netlify/function/ the name of the file.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then each function needs to export handler as a
Okay.
named export. So that's what we're doing here with export const handler.
Mm-hmm.
And I make it an async function so that we can return uh, just the body.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we'd have to do like we'd return a promise, and it's not worth it. So the
Yeah.
async just makes this into a promise for us so that we don't have to do anything at all. And the only required pieces in a serverless function is a status code, which is the HTTP code. So like 200 means okay. You've probably seen a 404, which is
Mm-hmm.
it means that it wasn't found. And then the body is whatever we want it to be, but it needs to be stringified if we're going to send it back. So
Okay.
let's say, for example, you were going to send back some other data. Let's say we've got like a user profile,
Mm-hmm.
and your user profile would be like name is Kelvin, and we'll do like a status of awesome, right? And then here we want to return this, but we can't just return it like this, because what'll end up happening is we'll get an error, and it
Yeah.
says there's just a problem with the thing. And if we go back to our terminal, we'll see the same thing. It says you must have a string, and I gave it an object.
Okay.
So what we do instead is we JSON stringify,
Mm-hmm.
and this will give us a stringified object, but we're still going to have a problem here
Yeah. Move to passive,
because
right?
this is now a string,
Yeah.
but we loaded it as text, and
Okay.
what we want to load it as JSON.
Mm-hmm.
So if I load it as JSON, then what I can do here is we can actually like build a message out of it. So let's build a message and say something like hello, and then we can do data.name, and we can say something like that. And then let me make that a little smaller so we can see what's going on.
Okay.
And then we just pass this message in, right? So what we've done now is we've switched over to sending JavaScript, like a JavaScript object,
Mm-hmm.
as the body, which we stringified.
Yeah.
And then when we fetched it, we recognized that what was sent back is JSON, which makes this into a JavaScript object again. So if I console log this data, when I push this button, did it fail on me? There
No,
we
it
go.
did not. Yeah.
We get a stringified, hello name, you are status. And we also see down here that we got back the data and it sees it as an actual object. So we've got all those details there. So this is like at the core of everything that's happening. This is why serverless is so powerful,
Mm-hmm.
is it's giving us the ability to just think about what we're trying to accomplish rather than thinking about how we actually deliver that thing, how we package it up and put it on the internet.
Yeah.
And so this then we can take even further, and let's do a little bit more here. I want to turn this into a form. So we'll do a form with a method of post,
Mm-hmm.
and in here we'll set up a label, and that's going to be for name, and name. And then we can do an input with an ID of name, and a name of VS Code is helping me in weird ways today. A name of name and a type of text.
Okay.
Okay. And then I'm going to do another one of these. And this one will be status.
Mm-hmm.
And that still needs to be name. And then we'll move our button up in here. Okay. So what's happened now is we have a name, a status, and a load data. Okay, great. But we need to rewrite this query selector. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to do a form. So we want to load our form, and we'll give it a class of we'll say like send details or something.
Mm-hmm.
So we can get our form now and send details. And I want to add a form, add event listener, submit. So now when you submit the form, we're going to do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get out the details of this form. So I'm going to get the form data. It's going to be new form data of event.target. I'm going to see if I just did that off memory on the first try. I think I did.
Yeah, I think
Then
you
we're
did
going to do
too.
name, and the name is going to be form data dot get name, and then we'll do another one for status, right? And then what we need to do is let's just go ahead and post that to our function. So I want to change it over to understand post, and so
Mm-hmm.
we can do that using this API here, where I can do a body and we'll JSON stringify, and I want to send in the name and the status.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so assuming I did all of that correctly, what
Mm-hmm.
will happen now is this will come in as a post. So we're going to get our request here. And what I want is to, we're going to do a data, or let's just do a user is going to be JSON parse, and that's going to be request.body,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
If I'm correct, and this is a big if,
Okay.
what we'll see happen here is I'm going to submit this form,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever name we put in here, so you do Jason and hungry, and now when I say this, it
Oh,
failed because
what do we get there? So maybe need to check your console.
get, yep, it doesn't like
Oh,
unexpected token.
Jason dot
Oh, oh,
pause.
oh. Okay, let's find out what
Yeah.
we're getting in our request here. So we'll console log the request
Mm-hmm.
and send this back, and we'll just comment that out for a second so it doesn't fail, and instead just send back an object. Okay, so I'm going to try this one more time. All right, so that did what we wanted, and what came back is here we've got our body, and
Okay.
so why didn't it like our body? That was correct.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's just.
Console log our user. Okay, let's try it again. And yeah, it gives us name and status. That's what we want. And so this should work. We might have just been out of sync here because this looks like
Yeah.
it's working.
Yeah. It does look like it's working.
Yeah. Okay. So
Okay.
it was doing what we wanted. I must have just needed to reload the page or something.
Okay.
And so now we have our name and status, and we can do something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can change it again and say something like this, right? And so now we've actually got user input driving the output of the serverless function. And
Yeah.
if we wanted to do something here, like for example, we could save to a database, or load extra details. All of those things are possible.
Mhm.
And so, that's now something that we can do, we can use. And that to me is what's so freaking cool about this, is we didn't have to figure out like all of the guts of how this would work. We just get to start building and having ideas and pulling these things together. Um, so let's see, how are we doing on time? We're like 25 minutes in.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any questions before I start like powering ahead here?
Yeah, I wish I do have a lot of questions because the function is just a function, and I have done a lot of backend development to know most of what we're talking about. And the cool thing here is we did not need to set up much. We just have a
Right.
single file which just export a function, and everything is still JavaScript, and it makes a whole lot of sense. I really like it.
Great.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're like, this is the development flow. We are building this thing locally,
Yeah.
and we're getting it to where we want it to be. And let's say we're happy with this. This is what we want to deploy.
Okay.
I want to ship this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to git add everything, and we can see here that what we've created so far is we've got our index.html and we've got our function.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to git commit, and we'll say, our first serverless function. And then I'm going to create a repo. So the way that I create repos, I use the GitHub CLI. We could do it a bunch of different ways, but I
Yeah,
like this one.
that's fine. I actually use it too. It's really pretty handy.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going to create it at the same URL here.
Mhm.
Let's see, serverless from scratch. And it's going to be a public repo.
Mhm.
So we will add a remote. It's going to be that one. Good, good. Off it goes. So now if I click through here, we've got our repo set up. Here's the function. This is now accessible on the web,
Mhm.
and I want to deploy this. So there are a few ways that we could do it. There's a fast way where you can run Netlify init in your CLI, but I'm going
Mhm.
to do it through the UI because it's kind of fun to show. So I'm going to go to app.netlify.com. I'm already logged in, so it's going to take me to my dashboard.
Mhm.
Um, but I want to add a new site. So I'm going to import an existing project, click
Okay.
on GitHub, and I'm not using the Netlify repo today, so we'll just pass on through.
Okay.
And we come back. I'm going to choose my learnwithjason org because that's where we just were.
Mhm.
Search for TKYT. I have like 500 repos, so this takes a second. There it is.
Okay.
And now I'm just going to deploy. And
Nice.
so all I had to do was find this repo,
Yeah.
and I'm deploying it. This is going to take, if I had to guess, call it 30 seconds. Um,
Oh, okay.
and
You
so this is the initial bootstrap. We're setting up the build button, everything. You can see it's packaging up our hello TS, and it's deploying, and that's it. We're live.
wow.
So now we have a live site, and this live site
Oh.
is now running. Like, we've got this
Oh.
function up and running and functional. So this is like, how freaking cool is that we were
Yeah.
able to have an idea, build it, and we are maybe 25 minutes into this build.
And that's because we were explaining to someone that doesn't even know what serverless function was. Like it should be way much faster than that. Like it feels so good because it felt as if we just deployed a static website because it was just that
Right.
easy.
Mm-hmm. And that's the whole idea. Like, that's the ethos of this is, if you look at how this goes, like, this is a static website. And
Mm-hmm.
so the index.html that we deployed, that is static.
Mm-hmm.
And it's deployed, it's on the CDN. It's very difficult to have this go down because it's, a CDN in the grand scheme of things is one of the last things that's going to have problems.
Yeah.
Um, and then the functions themselves, they get picked up and automatically deployed, and they're running globally. We've got logging in here and all the things that you would need so that you can manage this service. But you don't actually have to think about most of that. You just get to come out to your site and deploy it, and you're good to go. And so the other thing that I really like about this is if we come in here and we say, let's say, if I can remember how to do this, we've got the api.github.com, and then you've got users, and let's do me. All right, so here's my details on GitHub, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can take something like this and put it in here. And now I want to make a call to get my own details. So we're going to add a field on here that will include the GitHub repo.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say do a GitHub response, and that's going to be await fetch. We're going to have to I think we're going to have to install fetch. We're going to find out.
Yeah, I
And
think we
I'm going to
do.
send it to here, right? And then I'm going to say, we'll say user dot profile, right? And so that, again, we're going to do the check, make sure that it's okay. So if GitHub res okay, then we will console.error the GitHub res, and that kind of be. And then otherwise, what we'll do is we'll get profile is going to be await GitHub res.json. Okay.
Okay.
And then what details do we want out of here? So let's kind of pick in. We've got our avatar URL. That's probably kind of cool. We can show a name,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we show location. So we've
Okay.
got name and location, or avatar and location. So we'll get avatar, and that's going to be profile.avatar URL, and we'll get location, which is going to be profile.location, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I want to send those back. So we'll just spread out the user, send back the avatar and the location. And so now what we're doing is we are enhancing our response. And I just need to add in this field here for the username.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's grab that out as well. Right. There are ways that we could do this that would make it a
Yeah.
little more dynamic. We're kind of just grabbing stuff as we go.
Mm-hmm.
But I can come back out here. I made my changes, so I'm going to Netlify dev again. And note that it reused the same window, which always makes me really happy. But let's try this again. So we're going to do, we'll do me, and then we'll put in my username. And when we load the data, we get back what we expected, but we should get back. Did I reload?
I think we did get back.
Let's see if we missed. Let's see, we logged our request. The fetch API is an experimental feature.
Yeah, that's fine. Go. We're running the node. We're good.
We got a 404. Why did we get a 404?
Oh. Is that from GitHub?
Looks like it came back from GitHub. We got a
Yeah.
404. And the reason we got a 404 is, let's see, API GitHub J Lengstorf, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
so
it.
we sent back API GitHub users, because it's users GitHub.
Okay. Good.
Not knowing how the code works. Let's try that one more time, and we'll do one of these, and we'll try this. Hit the button, and if we get back, hey, look at this.
Yeah, we
So
get
now
back.
we've got an avatar and a location.
Yeah.
So we can just do whatever we want with this, right? This is what's so dang cool about this is now I can, we've got this, and I can do something like, we'll say, we'll give it a class of like user, and we can set it up like this. We'll just leave it empty actually. And down here, now that we've got our data, we can also do something like, user element is going to be document.query selector, and that was called user.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we've got our user element. And then what I'm going to do is create two new ones. So we'll create an image, which is going to be a document.create element image. And then we will set an image source of, where was it? Data.avatar.
Yeah.
We'll set an image alt of, we'll say, GitHub avatar for, and do data.github, because that'll be the GitHub username.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can also set up a, we'll say a location, and that will be document.create element paragraph tag. And we'll do a location.inner text. And that is going to have a value of data.location.
Nice.
We can do user element.append
Mm-hmm.
child, and we'll drop in the image. Do it again with the location. And so we'll do one of these, do one of these,
Mm-hmm.
do one of these, and
Wow.
there we go. Right? Like
Yeah.
it's very, very fun and very very friendly to kind of make this stuff stand up. And
Yeah.
then with relatively low effort, we can build these like really dynamic experiences where we can do something, we can set our user image max width of, we'll say, 50 pixels, and we'll do a border radius of 50%. And now when we do this, we can do, what's your GitHub username?
Dominus. DOMINUS Kelvin. Yeah. Oh,
There it is. Right? And so
nice.
now we've got this very quick, very like iterative experience where we can just try stuff and see how it goes,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that ends up being great. And when I'm ready, I just say, git commit
Yeah.
am, and we'll say feature add GitHub details,
Mm-hmm.
git push, and when we head over to Netlify here, we will see immediately it's already building.
Wow.
And it's cached this time. So, whenever we push our changes, it will automatically kick off a build. And so our static site changes and our serverless function changes
Mm-hmm.
both get deployed in tandem.
Yeah.
And that means that we don't have to really think that hard, right? We just get
Mm-hmm.
to do all this stuff and push it, and it goes live. And now when we come back out here, I think that's done.
Mm-hmm.
So I can reload the page. Here we go. So we'll do one of these. We'll do one of these. And
A
uh-oh.
502. Hmm.
Yeah, let's see what it's saying.
Those
Didn't
seven.
like something.
Let's do that again. Let's see. Come on.
Response type basic. Why am I getting a 502? Let's go look back here.
Yeah.
This is where those function logs get useful. So we can click in
Mm-hmm.
here and we can figure out why is it yelling at us.
Okay. Oh yes,
Fetch is
fetch.
not defined.
Yes,
Okay,
fetch.
I know
Yeah.
what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem that we're running into here is that we are using a different version of Node
Okay.
locally. I'm using
Mm-hmm.
Fetch 18,
Mm-hmm.
and that has it built in. But this is Node 16,
Oh, okay.
so we'll just npm install node fetch,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll go over here and we will import fetch from node fetch. I think that works.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you yelling?
Let's see. Object is not
That's
done.
just TypeScript yelling at me. We're gonna let TypeScript be mad.
Okay.
Um, and so we're going to ignore those node modules. So we'll just echo node modules into our git ignore, and
Mm-hmm.
then check again. It's missing, so I can git add everything, git commit, and we'll say fix add node fetch,
Mm-hmm.
git push, and So the other thing that we can do while we're waiting for this one to build
Mm-hmm.
is, okay, we just pushed a broken build, right?
Yeah.
So I want to roll back.
Nice.
There we go. One
Wow.
click and you're back to the previous version. So I made a mistake. It didn't work the way I wanted. So let's roll back.
Yeah.
And now we're on the safe version of the site until the new version builds and we are confident that it's doing what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And this should be done any second now.
Yeah.
So now that that's built, the new version goes live. Let's try again. And there we
Wow.
go. Okay. And so this is how I got really excited about this stuff. Is it gives me the ability to just have ideas and try things.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want and see how it works, and if it doesn't work, great, roll it back. If it does work, awesome, you're live in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And again, we're 35 minutes or so
Eh,
into building this project, and we've
eh,
already deployed 3 times. We've already added all these features, and at
Yes.
no point were we going, oof, how do you set up the boilerplate for that to work?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like it's really super cool. And I have a question, not really on
Yeah.
serverless, but okay, maybe it's on serverless. Is Netlify understanding the .ts files without any transpilation being
Mhm.
done? Wow.
Yes, that's handled as part of the build process.
Wow. Now that's, I think it's gonna even lower the barrier of doing TypeScript because for me personally, I don't do much TypeScript because of the TS config needed. Like I could do
Right.
TypeScript
And
in
so we
here.
can just
Yeah.
do yeah, we can just do something like this. Like this is not the right way to solve this problem. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
should go find the actual type for this. But
Yeah.
if we wanted to get something like this, we could
Mm-hmm.
set it up and say that it's got an avatar URL, and that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a string, and it's got a location, and that's also going to be a string. And then we can do something like this. And Matt Pocock just had a heart attack, but this works. And so now we
Yes.
know. And if I'm down here and I do something like this, it'll show me what my available types are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all just a thing we can do. It works as is. And when I go to deploy this,
Mm-hmm.
um, we'll do a add types. Sorry, Matt Pocock. And then we push. And what we get out the other side is, it we've got our little record of everything that's happening. This is
Mm-hmm.
going to be deploying for us already.
Yeah. Wow.
And once this finishes, now we didn't change any functionality, so nothing's going to change in the site itself. But what we
Mm-hmm.
were able to do is get rid of these errors that we were getting.
Yes.
Uh, so that, to me, that's where this really starts to show its potential and how powerful it actually is.
Yes, it
Why are
is.
you mad?
Let's see.
Whatever. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Some of those warnings I don't understand, so I just ignore them.
yeah, I think
Um,
I don't I feel this is just awesome. Like that's just what I have to say about it. It's just awesome because I've heard the term a lot, serverless, and in our industry we have a lot of buzzword, but seeing
mhm,
learning it from scratch right now, I could see the huge benefits, especially when you building static applications, even dynamic applications.
mhm,
Really, like I have my website built in Astro. This is a static site. If I need
mhm.
to do some dynamic stuff, I could just reach out for a serverless function and I just get on it. I won't think of coding up a server because, as a backend
Right.
dev, my first instinct would be like, go set up an Express server or a sales server. But with this, I could just streamline the workload and just have a function, just calling those .ts functions, and I could do whatever I want. It's just amazing.
Exactly. And I think that's the power of what we're dealing with here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do I have time to show you like 2 more quick things?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
All
Go
right,
for it.
let's do this. So the first thing I want to show is let's go rename our site.
Okay.
So I want this to be something that people can find. So we'll call it TKYT serverless
Mm-hmm.
to match up with the name of the repo.
Okay.
So when we come back out here, This now is going to be TKYT serverless. Right, so there's our
Oh.
site. And then the other thing that I want, and this is just a vanity thing, but I don't necessarily want to do the .netlify functions hello.
Mm-hmm.
This is fine, but what I really want is I want it to be an API.
Okay.
I want it to work like that, right? I want it to be /API/hello. Now, if I
Mm-hmm.
do that now, it breaks.
Yeah.
So to fix that, you might think this is going to be a huge pain because we got to set up proxies and all this stuff. But check this out. All I have to do is create this redirects thing,
Yeah.
underscore redirects, and then I can do API whatever, and I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to redirect it to .netlify functions splat, and then I'm going to use the 200 status code.
Wow.
Okay, so let me
Okay.
run this locally. Okay, so I'm going to do API hello, and it crashed because I'm not posting to it,
Yeah.
but it does work. So I can come into my index.html here, and I can change this over to be API,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I'm going to come back to the front, and we're going to do another one of these. And let's watch the network tab to see where it goes. So I'm going to hit the button,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes to my hello function at API hello, and it works.
Oh, this is just good.
So, right?
Yeah.
How freaking cool is that? And so then same thing to take this live. I'm going to actually let's add a second serverless function,
Mm-hmm.
just so that we can just see this happen. So I'm going to export const handler, and we're going to make an async function. And this async function is going to return a status code of 200 and a body of it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be able to test this. And so I'm going to git add everything. Okay. We're going to git commit and say, add a redirect. So it's more like an API. Okay. Oops. Git push. So that's off. That's happening. We're going to go look at the builds one more time.
Mm-hmm.
So here it goes. And this will build, another 20, 30 seconds here. And what we'll be able to do out at this side is I want to go to this test URL. So off we go. We can see it picked up the new functions,
Mm-hmm.
and we're live. Okay, so each of these builds is like, between, let's see, 17 was our fastest, 26 was our slowest. So under 30 seconds to deploy. And we have now deployed an API. So /API/test, it works. And this is how I run like the whole Learn with Jason is actually built on functions like this. So I do things like when you look at the episodes,
Mm-hmm.
each of these is powered by a serverless function. So when I look at one of these, I've written a redirect so that I can go poster.jpg and get the poster, right?
Wow.
Or I can do something like starting soon.jpg, and it gives me the starting soon image, which takes a second to load because I got to generate the whole thing. But these types of features are all built in. Oh, why did that one crash? There it is.
Yeah.
And then if I want to go get my schedule, API schedule. Oops, spelled it wrong.
Yeah.
There's my schedule, and there's these APIs, and each of these is a serverless function on my site. So if you look at the source code for Learn with Jason, and you go into sites, and then I've got www here, there are a whole bunch of Netlify functions, and you can see like here's my episode, my episodes, the schedule, who my sponsors are, the tags. All of these are serverless functions. And they're doing things like making a call out to Hasura. So this is a GraphQL call to the Hasura instance, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'm sending back the details of the posts that match that tag,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm able to do all of this so cleanly, in a
Yes.
way that would have taken me so much work if I had to go stand up a node server and deal with all that extra deployment. And every time I want to make a change, I got to deploy in two places, and it just really, really speeds up the speed of deployment and development. And it's one of the things that got me really excited about building for the web again, was being able to do things like this
Mm-hmm.
quickly.
Yes. I think I'm going to steal most of the functions you have for TKYT
Yeah,
because
definitely.
it's
Do it.
yeah, it's just amazing. Like I'm really excited about the web we have now because, like you mentioned, you started back in the day when you had to use tables for styling stuff, but right now anybody can just have like an API with serverless function, and it's a
Yeah,
good API. It's not scrappy. It works. You could ship
right.
it, and you're using it already for Learn with Jason.
Mhm.
It works today. I love it. It's and again, it's just JavaScript or TypeScript, and that's the good thing of it all.
Exactly. Well, and this is the thing that's really
Mhm,
powerful about this too.
mhm.
Everything we built today is free.
Oh,
Every single thing that I just did is included in the free tier. So you can have these ideas, build this quickly and ship all of these things to see, does it catch on? Do the people I think are interested in this actually want it? You know,
mm-hmm.
you can charge for things. You can hook this up to Stripe too.
Yeah,
Like I've got serverless functions on Learn with Jason for my store.
mm-hmm.
And this is all powered by Shopify now, but I've set up Stripe, and this is using Shopify as a backend. And there's ways that you can do all this stuff that is it's really like really powerful stuff that you can do.
Yeah,
Um, I'm just so excited for what people can build, and every single thing that I've shown is a thing that you can do for free.
yes, it's amazing. I am definitely, obviously, going to use this. Like like no, like it's a no brainer because it's the same feeling I got when we started deploying static sites. For example, my
Mm,
blog is static. The Salescast blog is also static, and we get that for free on a CDN. All you need is just a domain, and it's free. It's fast, and for each push to
hmm.
GitHub, you have it on. So it's just amazing.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
yeah, so with serverless function, we have the same workflow, but right now for a backend as a service, for example, like you deploy your static site, you have your backend just as functions.
Hmm.
Amazing. That's just it. Amazing. It's so cool. Yeah. So if you need to use serverless functions right now, you're definitely gonna need a Netlify account. So that's the only thing you need.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can do these on Netlify. There are other services that have serverless functions and similar workflows as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't want to use Netlify, you can find options.
Okay.
But yeah, Netlify is like I said, it's my favorite workflow for this. The local dev story is so good.
Mm-hmm.
It works with any framework. We'll auto detect the framework you're using and set up the local dev for you properly. So you know, Remix, Next, Astro, Quick, whatever you're using, we'll run it for you.
Nice.
Um, and then the serverless functions run at the same time. Uh, one click or the git commit to push to deploy.
Mhm,
That whole thing is
mhm,
that's all built in. So yes, that's the only thing you'll need. You sign up with your GitHub account or GitLab or Bitbucket,
mhm.
and you're off to the races.
Yeah, I have a Netlify account already. I'm a big fan of Netlify as well, and I think most of my domains were bought in Netlify. So yeah, so it's like I love a good UX, and
Mm.
even though we are not talking about domains now, but the experience of getting a domain on Netlify is so much cooler than I've seen elsewhere. And I've
It
seen,
is,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's pretty nice.
it's just straight to the point, and you get what you need. And the same thing with deploys and stuff. So definitely, I'm going to try this out. I am thinking of ways of using it for my site. Sales conf upcoming next year, the conference. It's definitely going to come in handy there. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show. This was a blast.
Yeah, it was very good. And do you have anything else you want to plug? Because of course, for you coming on the show, you could plug away anything. Just let us know. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I post videos on learnwithjason.dev.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on YouTube as well at learnwithjason. Um, yeah, follow me, hang out, have fun. I'm out here to just goof around and see what we can build on the internet and have as much fun as I can along the way.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. And So where can we reach you on Twitter, right? So the handle?
Yeah, my handle on
Mm-hmm.
Twitter and just about everywhere is J Lengstorf.
Okay, cool. I am definitely going to make sure to add those information in the description of the video, of course.
Mhm.
And yeah, so once again, thank you for teaching me serverless from scratch. I am blown away by the simplicity of that workflow. And I think a bunch of people will too. If you just want to build stuff quickly and deploy it, you have a great workflow with serverless functions. So thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kevin. I appreciate you having me on.